Welcome back to Rockstock Channel. It is Wednesday, June 18th, and we're back for the seventh time with Craig Shesky, CFO of the Metals Company. It's been another eventful 4 weeks since our last interview, Craig. I've run into you at both Benchmark Minerals Giga USA event in Washington, D.C. earlier this month, and again last week at the 121 Mining event in New York, the same event I met you last year, which has turned out for me a most fortuitous timing. You're now at the Wolf Nomura conference, and we appreciate you squeezing in some time for an update to discuss more significant news flow in recent weeks. As a reminder, Rodney and I are strategic advisors to and hold equity interests in the metals company. But we are not, of course, financial advisors, and nothing in this video should be considered investment advice. Please do your own research and read the disclaimer at the end of this video. What a difference a year makes, Craig. When we first interviewed you about a year ago, TMC stock was trading around $1, and the company was largely being financed with loans from major shareholders and CEO Gerard Barron. Our last interview 4 weeks ago followed a $37 million raise at $3, which included the Hess family, Brian Pays Braga, and it has recently also been disclosed your partner Allseas. And then just this past Monday, you announced another strategic equity raise. Korea Zinc is investing $85 million at $4.34, which has catalyzed TMC stock further today, trading above $7. Congratulations. We will include in the show notes links to our prior interviews with Craig about TMC, as we won't have time to go through all the background, and will focus today largely on what these strategic investments, recent board appointments, and other news flow announced mean for TMC. For more information about the Metals Company, we would encourage all viewers to visit their website, metals.co, and follow the Metals Company on X, @TheMetalsCo. And also follow TMC CEO Gerard Barron on X, @GTBGTB, and our guest today, Craig Shesky, on LinkedIn. And with that, welcome back, Craig. Why don't you start by giving some highlights of the Wolf Nomura conference you're at and what you're telling institutional investors today, and then Rodney will dig in with some questions.
No, appreciate that. It's always good to talk to you guys. And yeah, look, the news flow has been fast and furious. But I think what you see is a level of credibility that the Korea Zinc investment has brought to us, and I think that's resonating, not just with the retail investors that have driven us over the last couple of days to be the #1 trending stock on StockTwits, but also just to show that even at this higher market cap, we're able to attract investment from people who see us as a key linchpin to bringing the U.S. secure, stable supply of nickel, manganese, and cobalt. Korea Zinc has been very bullish on nickel and copper in particular, wanting to get more involved in these metals and also wanting to get more involved in the U.S. market. And they see us as having a very good conduit to this administration, as evidenced by the executive order in April, which is going to fast track our permitting, as well as the directives for the Defense Department, the Energy Department, various agencies like the Development Finance Corp, Exim Bank, to all look at what they can do to support this industry. So we are building a big coalition. This is not going to be TMC doing alone. While we may be, for let's say the first 5 years of this industry, the only commercial operator, it will be alongside partners like Allseas, Pacific Metals, Korea Zinc, that will make this happen. So all of this is I think, reflexive validation of the strategy we've been on. And we are very excited to have all of the support and be able to bring to the U.S. government the fact that because they have made very clear that this is very important for the United States, that has attracted a lot of other investment from strategics, and that will continue to be a very reflexive, virtuous cycle, not only for our company, but for our stock.
That's great, Craig. If we could just cover some of the news announcements and news flow that TMC's had since we last spoke. Firstly, you signed a revised sponsorship agreement with Nauru, updating the terms of the agreement from 2017. Can you just elaborate on what those changes were?
Of course. One of the very important things here that we've always been clear about is that even though the U.S. has the freedom of the high seas to direct its citizens and entities to begin seafloor polymetallic nodule collection without having to wait for the go-ahead from the International Seabed Authority of the United Nations. Our partnering states of Nauru and Tonga have been with us every step of the way. And the revised agreement with Nauru, and we're hoping to have a similar one with Tonga, makes sure that the economic benefit promised to them by the United Nations when this endeavor was begun decades ago puts us in a position to ensure they can join us on this journey and ensure that they get economic benefit from this, even though we're going outside of the International Seabed Authority construct. Effectively, the U.S. recognizes that many of these Pacific Island nations have a very important part to play in the geopolitics of the future and what is becoming a very tenuous global order, and knowing that there are certain Pacific Island states that are being enticed by China to effectively support Beijing and their goals with the promise of deep sea mining to build up their economies. While China is explicitly doing that with the Cook Islands and some other states, the U.S. sees an opportunity to bring into the fold, countries that frankly need and deserve to have economic benefit from this resource. But the bottom line is it's the right thing to do for our partnering states. And we are very eager to start commercial production and begin paying a royalty to our sponsoring states who have been with us every step of the way.
That's great. And then, as Howard mentioned, you've had this 85 million strategic equity investment from Korea Zinc, which I think is important. We see in a lot of other industries, intentions to sign and so on, and possible things. This is hard and concrete, and it's a subscription of just under 20 million shares at $4.34 a share. So they must be really happy. Additionally, there are warrants 0.35 for every share purchased with a strike price of 7. So as of earlier today, when I looked, that was already in the money. So more happiness for them. And then they have further participation rights, which you can cover. But it's also important to understand, I guess, for the viewers, that TMC USA and Korea Zinc have an existing letter of intent, and they've received a bulk sample. So they're aware of what's there. How do you see this relationship evolving?
Well, that's a great question. I think it will evolve over time as we also evolve the relationship with our partner PAMCO, Pacific Metals in Japan. I think the reality is, whether it's on the offshore side or the onshore side, the resource itself is so massive. And again, if you're talking about U.S. needs for nickel, manganese, and cobalt, what we could supply from 1 billion tons of nodules would be approximately 456 years of manganese at current U.S. consumption, 165 years of cobalt, 81 years of nickel. So the resource is large enough that we know we're going to need to have multiple partners. And this is great for us to say, look, as we continue to work on what the processing infrastructure is going to look like, whether it's in East Asia, whether it's eventually bringing much of that, especially on the refining side, to the United States, this is good skin in the game for a major player like Korea Zinc, which is the world's largest zinc smelter, and also has the stated intention of not only getting more involved in nickel and copper, but also getting more involved in the U.S. market. So it is truly a symbiotic relationship, but it shows that it takes a village. This isn't something that we can or want to do alone. TMC knows what we're good at, and that is the identification of the resource and the permitting of that resource. We also want to rely on the balance sheets and expertise of engineering partners offshore and onshore to make that happen. So this is great in that we're building this very, very big coalition together that can continue marching forward.
Excellent. And then finally, you've appointed 2 new directors to the board this week. Can you discuss the particular strengths that they bring to TMC?
Well, absolutely. So Alex Spiro, first of all, is joining us. He's obviously represented quite a few high-profile clients. He has a very strong Rolodex in DC and beyond. And given the fact that, the regulatory and legal aspects of our strategy, there's something that needs to be well articulated to the market. And we feel very strongly that the path we've taken through the U.S. is the right path, and also about as legally buttoned up as you can get. Still, we recognize going forward, having strong legal bench with that expertise is going to be very important. He also, of course, has connections to a lot of folks who, down the road could be very interested in our project. Michael Hess, Mikey, son of John Hess, has a lot of experience in investing, but also some offshore expertise. And we know that the Hess name opens quite a few doors in Washington, D.C. And many of those doors, even if they've been open, it's worthwhile to be able to say, here are the other people with significant credibility and influence within the administration who can say, yes, you are right to pursue this. What you're doing with TMC is the right path. Commerce Department, you have every reason to get this permitted. White House, President Trump, you have every reason to know that if you deliver this, you will continue to see the investment like what we just saw from Korea Zinc, where if you're going to permit this project, you will see hundreds of millions or billions down the road of investment come in from allied parties, while at the same time preventing this industry from being dominated by China, which currently dominates the nickel, manganese, and cobalt processing. So it is truly symbiotic. It is something where one hand is washing the other, and we're very happy that since the investment for Korea Zinc was announced, they've seen quite an increase in the value of their shares, but also the fact that with Alex Spiro joining the board and Michael Hess, they're seeing the investment that they've made both personally and in terms of capital start to bear fruit. And that's helpful for everybody.
Yeah, just two more quick ones from me, Craig. One of the viewers commented on our last YouTube video, and we would encourage all viewers, if you have any questions, to comment, on these videos, or just email me at rockstockchannel@rkequity.com, and we'll try to get Craig to answer them. But one of them was just asking for a bit more color about Allseas, and it was disclosed, I think, afterwards, the $3 financing, that Allseas, filed a form that they did participate, I think, for $7 million. So that was a further validation to anyone kind of questioning whether or not, Allseas was still committed. But also, if you could just share for this viewer and all of our viewers, who is Allseas and what does this mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Allseas has been an amazing partner. They've devoted the Hidden Gem vessel, which they purchased in 2020 for our exclusive use, to the collection of these nodules. They also designed and fabricated the collector vehicle, which is being used for nodule collection. In fact, one of the chief engineers from that project, Rutger Boseland, now works for TMC on our executive team. We continue to work hand in glove with Allseas. They invested $7 million in that $37 million capital raise in May. They have invested hundreds of millions overall in this project. They see this as one of the key and smartest ways for them to diversify away from just the oil and gas vertical into metals and mining. And they're able to do that through a partner like TMC, but also they recognize that this is an area where, their engineering expertise is, of course, very valued, but there's also, I think, a political angle that's been very helpful to see in that the Netherlands, which is where they tend to be based, they're Swiss domiciled, but most operations in the Netherlands. There was a recent vote in Dutch Parliament about whether or not the Netherlands should support the moratorium or the precautionary pause that other European countries have tried to take. And it was helpful to see that moratorium was denied, and that the Dutch Parliament did not vote in favor of that. So politically, economically, strategically, we are continuing to work very closely together with Allseas. And now that we have a very clear path towards permitting, now that we know our pre-feasibility study is going to be released next quarter, now that we have a lot more cash in the bank, approximately $120 million pro forma for the two strategic deals that we announced, now we and Allseas get to roll up our sleeves together and say, okay, assuming this permit's going to be coming, what is the right timeline for us ordering some of these longer lead time items to get this ship ready to go, such that when the permit comes, we don't have to wait 12 months, 18 months, 24 months to start production, but we are ready to get the ship out there and begin operations. So those conversations will be ongoing over the course of this summer. But they're very excited. And again, remind yourselves that they are a 17% shareholder in TMC. So the rally that we've seen over the last couple of months has been very good for their balance sheet as well.
Very exciting for them, and those conversations talking about long lead time items is much more real, than the conversations you were having a few months ago. You mentioned that vote in the Netherlands. The last, I guess, two related questions was at the Benchmark event in DC. I noted Kurt Kelty was a keynote speaker from GM, and then there was another keynote from LG Energy Solutions. I watched them both, and they both flagged, their LMR, lithium manganese battery. So if you could kind of talk about that, because the manganese is a key material, but also GM made a reference to seafloor mining in that unprompted. So I just found that if you just comment on what that means for you or your thoughts on that overall.
No, absolutely. Well, look, we had a wonderful deep sea mining panel during that event too, hosted by Ernie Scheider, the reporter from Reuters on this issue. So the fact that we're getting on the main stage now is very helpful. Very nice to see. But both GM and Ford have announced their intention to pursue LMR batteries, lithium manganese rich. Now, LFP batteries, lithium iron phosphate, have gotten a lot of headlines in the last couple of years because they're cheaper. But of course, they are mainly made in China, with over 95% of the patents held in China. This LMR technology, which could be produced in the United States alongside, the GM and LG Energy Solutions partnership, that could offer 40% higher energy density, 40% longer range at the same cell price as LFP. So not only is it a technology not controlled by China, but it's a superior technology. The cells for that battery will be 65% manganese and 35% nickel. Well, that lines up very nicely for the composition of these polymetallic nodules. So when Kurt from GM noted on stage that nodules could be a major source of manganese in the future, he was basing that on reality. That wasn't based on any spin. That was based on the fact that, yeah, when you look at where the manganese may come from in the future, nodules are the best source and the most abundant source. So we'll see what happens on that front. But it is heartening to see that some of the momentum we've had on the permitting side is also potentially going to lead to the momentum on the offtake or a commercial relationship side as well.
Okay, great. Well, GM, we've observed, has been among the most astute and, from investing in the supply chain, from MP Materials on rare earths and magnets, and Lithium Americas, for lithium. And they're very politically connected. So to be continued, would be interesting, if you had some sort of OEM come into the company at some stage, but obviously early days on that score. Okay, Craig, thank you very much for squeezing us in at the conference and giving us this great update on another fantastic week for TMC. So see you soon.
See you, Howard. See you, Rodney. Thanks as always.